Greetings, I'm Epictetus, and this is Epic Tech, and welcome to a tutorial on shipbuilding in Interstellar Rift. Before we get started, let me first say that this is an early access game, which means everything that I show you could change, but most of it will probably be the same. So let's get to it. Now, if you've played Interstellar Rift, you know that it is possible to simply buy yourself a ship. Is it here? Repair, purchase. So in this specific station, which is Hurls, you can buy the HSC excavator. Once you've purchased a ship, you can modify it in the ship construction terminal, and every starter station has one of these. So if you don't like exactly how it works or flies, simply walk up to this and hit modify ship, and your ship will show here. You can click modify and you'll be in the same screen that we're about to find ourselves in. You can also build an existing ship of anything that's saved on your computer or anything that you have subscribed to in the Steam workshop. You can salvage an existing ship to get the parts back, and then you can actually design your own ship from here simply by clicking this button. It will take you into the designer that we're going to be spending most of the tutorial in today. You can do this in-game, but if you're designing something from scratch, I recommend actually doing it from the main menu instead, saving it, and then loading up your game. It's the second button, Interstellar Rift Ship Editor, and it brings you into the exact same place. So let's dive right in and start building a ship. Now you're going to notice up here at the top that you have all these kind of suggestions. That there's a teleporter required, life support's required, there's no armor generator. Yeah, we don't have a ship yet, but let's talk about the interface. There are 5 different modes, technically 6 because the paint mode is its own. The interior edit mode is where you're going to design, well, the interior of your ship. This is going to be walls, ceilings, floors, windows, that sort of thing. Prop edit mode is where you add things into those rooms, into that interior. Exterior mode is obviously changing the exterior. Then there's the power group edit mode, which lets you change both the power groups, some things in the life support, and the weapon groups. And then there's device edit mode, which we're going to get to later. And like I said, the paint mode. If you have a specific paint theme in mind, feel free to use one of these right away. Pick one that you like. I'm going to pick one I've never used before, which is, oh, I don't know. Let's do something somewhat bright and interesting. I don't think I've ever used this one. And let's start making a ship. We'll get to some of these other buttons as we go. So the first thing you're going to want to be aware of is that these arrows show the front of your ship, which means make sure that your cockpit is pointed that way or you're going to be very confused. Let's start off by building ourselves a modest little room. 3 by 3 looks good to me. All I did was clicked and dragged a square and we got ourselves a little bit of a room. Now I'm going to click cockpits and then I'm going to move around. You can see that it's kind of bouncing around weirdly, right? This can be confusing at first. Just remember that the origin square is what you're pointing at, and at the side of the square that your cursor is over determines the direction it's pointing. So if I go to the back, it's going to point back toward me. If I go to the left, it's going to point to the left. But if I cross this line into the next square, it's going to then use that as the origin. You see what's happening there? The first time I did this, I was so confused as to what it was doing. So just remember that where you point inside the square matters. I'm going to go ahead and click, and we've got ourselves a cockpit. Now, as these suggestions up at the top say, there are certain things that are required for a ship to really be usable. Now, I could actually spawn this ship in if I wanted to, but it wouldn't be very useful. I wouldn't be able to teleport to it for one thing because there's no teleporter, and that is a problem. So let's get a teleporter. Now, a teleporter isn't attached to a wall, so we need to go over to prop edit mode, which you can click on, or you can hit F2 and it'll jump straight to that mode. Under systems over here, I'm going to click, and then we have 2 different choices of teleporter. Now, if you're just starting your game, then you don't have access to silicon. which is why this one's got a green outline to it. It is a tier 1 item. Even if I put this in here, I wouldn't actually be able to build it because I don't have any silicon. Of course, in creative mode you could, but if you're playing the game as it's meant to be played, then you have to get out of the system to get silicon, which means, yeah, that's a problem. And a lot of these things in here have very high-end requirements. So in order to not be confused by items that are a higher tier than you can access, you can uncheck these guys right here. And we're going to make a tier 0 ship. Now when I hover over the teleporter, even though it's got a plus, which means there's more different options above this one, none of them are at tier 0. So I'm going to go ahead and just click this, and we're going to put this right over here. Now, one thing to be aware of, many items have a control panel that you need to be able to access. And I'm going to zoom in by using my mouse wheel. And I can see, by the way, if you click your mouse wheel, you can drag and it'll rotate. And you can see that this teleporter has a control panel on the wrong side. So I'm going to hover right here. I'm going to use my left and right arrows to rotate. And I want the teleporter's control panel to face the cockpit here. And that's a good spot for it. Let's go ahead and do this armor generator next. Now, the armor generator is what, well, generates your armor after you've taken damage. It requires nanobots, and it's right down here under systems. You can see the small armor generator. There are larger ones, but they're not tier 0. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And I'm going to put that near the back of my modest little ship here. Again, we need to watch out for where the access point is on this. So if I rotate this, you can see 3 sides don't give you access to be able to put the nanobots in there. But this one does, so we're going to go ahead and click that. By the way, if you want to not have something on your mouse, you can just right-click out somewhere, and it'll remove that thing off of your mouse. You won't have anything selected. So now let's look at life support. Now, life support actually does need to connect into the walls, which means we need to go back to interior edit mode. It's the very first item, life support systems. You have to have one of these on the ship somewhere. You can have more than one. The only advantage of having more than one is how often you have to replace the oxygen and pull out the carbon. With a larger ship, you might want to have more than one, but on a small ship like this, one is plenty. Now, again, it's going to rotate itself based on where in the square I am pointing. So I can put it here, I could put it here. I think I'm going to go ahead and put it here, and that should be good, but we have no ventilation. So now we need to go ahead and go to life support systems. We can use any one of these styles, of vents. So they have ceiling fans, floor fans, and wall fans, vents. So we could put something on the wall, but we've got very limited wall space. So instead, I'm going to put a floor fan right here in the middle. One thing to be aware of, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to exterior edit mode. And you'll see that we already have a very blocky, ugly ship. When you place rooms, Interstellar Rift automatically places bits of armor that are required to actually seal in that room. Now, that makes it look really ugly, and that's where we probably want to actually fix some things. So if I click on this little guy, and we'll just go right over here, and I can place these in and make this look a little nicer. But be aware that a lot of your work can be undone. So if I go back to interior edit mode and I click out here, it's going to place another wall. So let's go look at exterior, and you can see that because it needs a full block above this, it has replaced some of my angled blocks with standard blocks. Going back to the inside, if I right click right here, that removes that. And then back to the outside, you can see, it has removed this. So I always do my exterior last. All right, so back on the inside. Now, it might be nice to have a few windows in here. So let's go to interior edit mode, And we're going to look at, there's various different sections here. We're going to go ahead and look at windows. And there's a whole bunch of different options. For example, we can do a window like this. Be careful, if you place a window backward, instead of placing the window, it'll just add on to your ship. So we're going to right click there, we're going to get rid of that room, that piece of the room. And I'm going to move back my mouse until it flips around to the other side. Now I've got myself a nicer little window. Now each one of these windows has a slightly different look. So this one's got like this little planter box look on the outside. And if we look from exterior edit mode, it's actually kind of nice. Maybe we want something that has a little bit of a bump out. And you can actually walk into this space, which is kind of nice. But there's a lot of other options. So, for example, one of my favorites is the double slope. There's one that's double slope up, and this one is the double slope down. It just faces, you know, either up or down. If I've got space for 2 windows, I will use this one a lot of times. Let's try and get that into the right spot. There we go. I like that one a lot. You can even do the porthole thing. Like that. A little tiny. I don't know why you'd want to do that one, but, you know, there are reasons. Also, something else you should know about. See where this cockpit is? If I add a piece of floor and I go to the outside mode, you can see that that piece of floor needs this piece of armor. So it's replacing that cockpit with that armor. It's not obvious from the inside, but that's what's going on. There we go. Put that back in there. Really quickly, I'm going to go over to power groups. And I'm going to see that our current capacity is 0. Our power drain, or power generation is 0. We have no power whatsoever. But we are draining 16 constantly, and we can peak up to 1,000 on top of that. So we're going to need to generate some power. So I'm going to flip back over to prop edit mode, and we're going to go down to systems. So let's just put in a basic hydrogen generator. We can aim this any way we want. Thinking something like that might look nice. But a hydrogen generator needs, well, hydrogen, and you need to be able to store that somewhere. So we're going to need a hydrogen tank. Now there's several different sizes, and they're all tier 0. Now, as you can imagine, I'm just going to go ahead and go with the small one. And I think I'm actually going to move that generator, and we're just going to put the hydrogen tank at the back like that. And we'll put this generator over here. There we go. Now we've got our 3, things that we need to access right next to each other. So we're going to put hydrogen in here, oxygen in here, and nanobots in here. Let's take a look at that power group again. So I'm going to click over here, and we're going to see that we are now generating 150 power per tick. And we can click over here on the hydrogen generator, and we can see that it can hold 150 at a time. But sometimes we're going to need as much as 1,000. That's probably our teleporter. Yeah, our teleporter will use 1,000 every time it teleports, which means that we're going to have to wait for that generator to generate on the fly while we're teleporting. That works, but it does mean you hit teleport and then you wait. Don't know that we actually want to do that. That's where batteries come in. So we're going to go back to prop edit mode, and we're going to get ourselves a battery. Now we could place this battery over here, or we could put it here. But my favorite thing about Interstellar Rift is they let you put items inside of items. So I can actually place this battery inside of the generator. Now, at first you're going to say, whoa, that's really unrealistic, but keep a couple of things in mind. One, you're playing a video game, so shut up. Second, you still have to pay for it. It still takes up weight. And third, it looks awesome if you do it right. So if I put in 2 of these guys, you tell me, does that not just look like an upgraded generator? It's a generator with more battery storage. That's all it is. And it looks like an angry monster. Doesn't it? No? A little bit? Okay. Maybe a frog. I can't tell. From over here, it looks like a happy train. I'll shut up. Anyway, now we have a whole bunch of battery. Now, batteries do two things. Let's jump back into the power edit mode, and let's take a look at our capacity. We can now store 3,150,000. That's a lot more. You're also going to see that the power generation is higher and the drain is higher. Now, don't let these confuse you. Batteries, if we click on one of these batteries, you can see that they can drain up to 1,000 each. But what they mean by that is when they're pulling in power to store, they can store at the rate of 1,000, and they can put out power at the rate of 300. But that's not an actual constant drain. So when this says 2016, what it really means is 16, because these two batteries are each theoretically draining 1,000. But once they're maxed out, they're not going to use that anymore. And then their ability to generate is 300 each, and then the actual hydrogen generator is another 150, and that's where we get our power generation of 750. So it does mean that our teleporter will still actually not instantly have power available to it when you ask for it. So we probably want to do something else about that. Now, we could add yet another battery, but honestly, we can already store 3 million. It's far more than we need. Even at the full drain of, let's see, 1,016, if you were constantly teleporting back and forth, it's going to take a long time. Now, of course, we haven't added engines and thrusters and that kind of thing, so those are going to take some more, and 3 million is still a good idea. But we need something that can put out power faster. So let's jump back into prop edit mode and take a look at the power cell. Now, power cells, their purpose is to store less power and to more be able to push it out faster. So I could, if I want, put that right there and another one there. And now we've got a really powerful system going on. Let's take a look at power edit mode again. Now our capacity has only gone up by 20,000. Our generation is still only 750. And the reason for that is because power cells, they can store 10,000, but they can dump it all instantly. So if that teleporter actually requests 1,000, it will take it from the power cell instantaneously. This also means that we have 20,000 power that can be dumped out instantaneously into any system that suddenly needs it. And one of those things is the cockpit itself. The cockpit only says that it uses 1 per tick, but the reality is every time it goes up a level in warp, it takes a whole bunch of power. And we can look up here that this is the warp power requirement. So it's saying that it's going to take 110 per tick, or if it's fully loaded, and what it means by that is all the hydrogen tank is fully filled with hydrogen, the oxygen system is filled with oxygen and carbon, it's full of nanobots, everything. Then it would take up to 185 per tick, and that is per warp level. So we're not going to be able to sustain warp 9 for very long, but probably long enough. Now, speaking of fully loaded, where are we going to store cargo on this ship? I highly recommend having at least one cargo pad. Over here is our cargo pads and our lockers and that kind of thing. I'm thinking that a cargo pad right here in front of the armor generator would not be a bad idea. Whoops. Again, make sure that you're placing things down with the control panel the way you want. So let's rotate that. That way we can see what's on our pad right in front. And, well, hey, why not? Let's put one over here as well. And I'm thinking that we can use one of these lockers. We'll rotate it and we'll stick it right there. We have a little bit more work to do though, because this thing has no ability to actually fly. So let's jump out to exterior edit mode and start putting some actual engines and thrusters on here. Down here in the lower right-hand corner, engines and thrusters. These are all our tier 0 thruster options. So right here is a class 1 ion engine. That's one of the larger ones at tier 0. This is a class 2, which is a little bit smaller. And then the class 3s only take up a single small square. Let's go for one of these. So let's look up here and you can see that max speed is 226 meters per second. That's plenty. We really don't need to go crazy. Also, even if you do go crazy, 499, 499. There is a maximum speed, and any more thrusters than that don't help. We can get to 430 with 2 of these guys. Let's do that. This max speed, might as well get as much as you can, as long as you can afford it. But these maneuvering thrusters, it doesn't matter which one you choose, they're all the same. So we can do something like, by the way, left, right, up, and down. So this is just pressing right a whole bunch of times. And this is pressing up a bunch of times. So if you want to rotate it the other way, what you kind of have to do is use a mix. So if I do one of those and I want to flip this over, I have to rotate it this way, then down twice, and then back to get that mirrored look right there. Now, watch out though. Our turn rate is now 1.99. Now, that's crazy. That speed is insane. You wouldn't be able to control this ship at all. You want to aim for the middle. And unfortunately, with a ship this small, getting the middle is pretty hard. So, we have 2 options. We can either go with 1 and get an okay turn rate. I normally aim for about 0.8, 0.8-ish, 0.9, but definitely not 1 or over. But 0.5 is kind of slow. So I'm going to show you the difference. And if I'm going to go ahead and place in 2 of these guys. I don't know why 1 would give me 0.5 and 2 would give me 2. After we put on a whole bunch of armor and start loading it up, we might see that decrease, but I'm not sure. We're going to find out. Let's look at some of the other things we can put on here. Solar panels. Solar panels are wonderful things. They will generate a little bit of power for you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go ahead and put on 3 of these guys. And then let's take a quick look. Solar panels, each one will hold 0.5 and generate 0.5. It's not very much, but it's something. And I'll tell you what, if you're stuck in the dead of space and your hydrogen tank is completely empty, solar panels plus batteries plus time equals getting home. So even just having 1 is better than nothing. Also, you're going to want some sort of sensor. On a ship this small, it may not really be necessary, but it certainly doesn't hurt. So I'll just stick one right there. Why not? Then there's also lights, and that is this button over here, switch lighting mode. Now if I turn that, you're going to see it's very dark inside, so we need to put in some lights for sure. Let's start with walls. Now there's several different appearances for walls, and you can choose any one of these. Personally, I like this industrial wall or this kind of plain deco wall. I like very basic. Now you can go through and you can click, and try and get the right spot and click, or you can get one of them placed and hold down the shift key and it will actually insert all of them. It'll replace all walls of the type you're pointing at with the kind that you're replacing. So for example, if I were to go in and place this here and this here and this here, and then choose this Hurls Co. wall advertisement. If I click, it'll replace just this one. If I shift click, it'll replace all of those of the same kind, but it won't replace anything that already existed. So I'm actually going to go back and I'm going to replace all of them with this. There we go. That's a nice, simple one. Now, if I go back into lighting mode, you'll notice that didn't help with lighting at all. And that's because these have strips that look illuminated, but they're not illuminated. Nothing in the wall section does. What we need to do is go to furniture. And in furniture, we're going to find something that looks fairly similar, but actually creates illumination. And if I go to lighting mode, you can see that that actually does have an effect. But that's not how we're going to light things. So I'm going to get rid of that. What I'm going to do is put in a server ceiling light, and I'm going to put it right over the center. Now, that works pretty well. It's not perfect, but it's good enough for now. Now let's take a quick look at floors. Now there's all kinds of different floors in here, and for the most part, it's just a matter of looking around at what's available, rotating it to the way you like it, and placing them in. Keep in mind that if you replace your floor fan, it will go away, and then you'll have to place another one. I do like how this kind of floor kind of matches the top of a cargo pad, so it kind of fits with cargo pads. But I also really like these floors. Now, these floors have emissive strips on them. They don't actually create light, but I just kind of like the look, and you can kind of make paths with them. So we got a T section, this is a cross, and then this is just a single floor line. In a ship this small with only one visible floor, really, it's not really necessary, but it does kind of fit with the walls. Okay, so there's really nothing else that we would need to do except for do some decoration, but that's really just a matter of fiddling with all the various different shapes and seeing what you like, using the up, down, left, right arrows to match it. I don't need to tell you what's in here. You can kind of skim through it. Don't forget to scroll down. They have a lot of different shapes, including things that can make some like really cool spiky looks. So you can get some like unicorn spike on top or whatever. All kinds of fun shapes. For coloring, you can draw with the color. Or if you want to replace every item of the same type with the same color, hold down Shift, just like inside with walls and stuff. Horribly ugly ship. It looks like some sort of mechanical rainbow unicorn or something. That's really awful. There you go. Now it's got a horn that's white. All right, so there's nothing left to do except give it a try. Make sure to save often, by the way. I should have saved at the very beginning of this, but I kind of forgot. Hit save, give it a name, Rainbow Unicorn. And you can hit save. By the way, you can also export the ship to a file that you can, email or whatever to somebody. And also, while you're working, after you've saved, hit F5, and it will save. So you can just, while you're working along, hit F5, hit F5, F5. That way you don't lose anything. Also, before making major changes, because there is no undo feature, hit F5. Now, let's go ahead and exit. And here we are back in the Hurls station, and we're going to click Build. We're going to scroll down through all my many ships, and we're going to click on Rainbow Unicorn and hit Build. Ship constructed. Player ship Rainbow Unicorn in range. Now don't forget, before you go to your ship the first time, go to your vault and grab some oxygen and some hydrogen. They always give you just enough to get started with. We're going to go ahead and teleport over to the Rainbow Unicorn. And I just realized I never changed the name of the main room. That's okay. You'll notice that the batteries actually have some charge in them, and that's because we have solar panels, and they're going to slowly fill up over time. So let's go ahead and load some hydrogen in, and we'll take a look, and look at that cell is filling up fast. The battery, not as much. And let's go ahead and throw some oxygen in there so we don't suffocate. This looks pretty much like we expected it to. By the way, in order to check some stats, we can right-click and hold and look to the left. We can see that we're using some fuel. We've got plenty of oxygen. This is how much armor we have. We have no shield generator, so there's no shield. And we can click on Advanced Stats, and we can start looking at the battery power. This button over here, by the way, will bring you into additional details and options. So I'm going to go to Device Details, Default Group, and we can actually see what's using our power. We can also go back a level and graph options and we can see even more things. I love numbers. And let's go ahead and take this baby out for a ride. Oh my word. And this is what you have. This speed right here, this rotation speed, this is with 2 thrusters. It's too much. I'm getting dizzy. I can't even stop the thing. Okay. I want to just stop. I am legitimately trying to stop it while looking at the planet, and it is not easy. Let's really quickly look over here. We're going to go to engine stats, and we can see we've got 2 thrusters. So I'm going to turn off one of the thrusters just by doing that. And let's see if it's any easier to control. Oh, so much better. Oh, look at that. Now, if I were to fill this thing up with cargo, I'm not sure what would happen. Now let's see how fast we can go. And our max speed is 392. Not too shabby. All right, so now let's give this thing a try at warp and see what we can do. Engaging warp engines. Warp 1, 2, 3, 4. I lost count. And there we are, warp 9. Oh, 8. The reason it's stopping our warp is because we're aiming toward a planet there, and the planetary gravity will automatically slow us down. But if I go away from any planets... There we go. Let's see how long we can last. Well, we're actually doing pretty darn good. And actually, the cells being at max, that's actually better than I expected. Let me see something. Status, ship status, advanced stats. Let's take a look at graph options, and we are actually generating more power. You can see how much we're storing, and it's actually generating more than it's losing right now. And we're moving at warp 9. And the hydrogen is dropping, but not all that fast. I think we're doing just fine. Here we go. We're almost back at the HSC station, and... Ooh, yeah. How close did I stop? It's always my goal to stop as close to the station as possible, and I'm going to say that was pretty good. So at any point in time, like I said, you can walk up to one of these ship terminals, hit modify a ship. All the ones that are within range will appear. Ammo loader, like that. It's going to show you up here what the modification cost is going to be. So in this case, it's going to cost us 850 iron, 250 copper, and 200 steel. And you can collapse that if it's in your way. Hit escape. I recommend saving at this point and hit confirm your modifications. It's going to once again tell you what it's going to cost. And you can click on any one of your vaults if you have stuff in there and hit accept. And everything will stay. You're not going to lose power in your batteries. You're not going to lose whatever you've loaded into items. However, if you move an item, you may, depending on how you move it. So just be aware of that. And obviously, if you delete an item, what's in it goes away. And that's everything I've got for this first part of the ship editing tutorial. So this is how to build a small ship. Next time, we're going to be talking about how to build a larger ship where you actually need to do things like have multiple rooms, where you're going to need to set up possibly power groups, and it gets a lot more complicated from there. Also, make sure and check that description for any updates or addendums that I might have to put in after the fact, major changes to the game. I'll probably add in some clarifying notes down in the description. Wouldn't hurt to check the top of the comments as well, because I might have to pin a comment, those kinds of things. There's also a link to my Discord server in the description. Please feel free to come by and ask questions. There's a lot of people on the server that know a lot about Interstellar Rift. There's a whole section specifically for Interstellar Rift where you can ask questions, and There's also a video feedback channel that I'm constantly watching, and anything you post there I'll see, and I want to hear positive feedback, negative feedback. I want to hear, even if you're still confused by something, let me know. But that's about it. Feel free to like, subscribe, etc., and I'll see you next time on Epic Tech.